Hello, everyone. We're here for another story tonight. We actually have a live interview to bring to y'all, uh, and this is the Old Bear's Den of Bigfoot, and it's about a gentleman saw a Bigfoot at his niece's house one night, and we are going to let him tell his story, and then we're going to ask a few questions of him afterwards, and we're going to go from there. So, we hope you enjoy it, and let's get started. Now, Larry, that's your first name.
Right.
We're not going to divulge your last name or anything or where you live. We are here in Cave City, Kentucky, doing this interview. Now, this is not where you saw the Bigfoot, and this is not where you live. So, can you tell me in your own words what happened that night? Lead me up to that night.
Okay, I've got a niece. She was going through cancer treatments, and her husband was a truck driver at the time. And she'd want me to go to the hospital with her when she did her cancer treatments. And I went up there to meet her. We went to the hospital, came back that day. And it was late, I'll say between 12:30 and 1 o'clock at night. She has a small dog, and I have a small dog. She was on the phone talking to her daughter, and I let the dogs out to use the bathroom before laying down, and walked outside to let them go out. Now, I need to tell you how the property was set up so you can understand how everything went on. As you come down her street, you turn right in her driveway. The houses are sitting on 2-acre lots. And you run straight down her driveway, you go straight into her garage door. About 20 feet before you get to her garage, there's a pull off on the side where a double car parking space is at. Well, I let the dogs out, and went up to this parking spot, and they were using the bathroom. And up near the road, we heard some movement going on. They started barking at it before we heard the movement. And whatever this was, it came in. There's a path, like there's a 2-acre lot in between her house and the house next door. And I wouldn't have believed this if I hadn't sat there and counted. But in the morning, you can sit there and count turkeys. There's 3 or 4 trees down there turkeys get in and roost in. And I sat there and counted over 40 turkeys in the early morning coming out of there, and that sounds unbelievable, but it's the truth. Well, I figured this path was for these turkeys that would come down through there and roost in these trees. Well, there's something up there in the road, and it came in the grassy area, headed down towards us, and the dogs started barking at them, and this turned and started coming towards us. Well, I hear everybody saying they weigh between 400 and 300 pounds. This had to weigh over 600 pounds because as it put its foot down, it was like a snare drum hitting to a bass drum. It actually shook the ground, just about totally shook it. When it hit the ground, it was boom, boom, boom. I mean, it was.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I couldn't believe how loud its feet were. I've never heard anything. I've never even heard an elephant put its foot down that sounded like this did when it came down on the ground. Well, anyway, they were barking at this, and it turned its direction and started coming towards us. And as you drop off at the end of this area, you drop off, and there's a big drop off there. Then it goes straight into trees, and there's no lights there. I mean, it is totally dark. This animal came towards us, and it's standing there at the end of this driveway in the shadows of these trees. And it stops, and we make eye contact. We're standing there staring into each other down, and I'd say I'm roughly less than 20 feet from it. Now, I'm not talking about yards, I'm talking about feet. My dogs are barking at it. My dog's barking at it and hers is barking at it. And I holler their first name, tell them, get over here and get in that house. But my dog's kind of stubborn. He don't like to come. You can tell him to stand still and you go pick him up. But both of them took off and they headed straight for that house. Well, usually I carry a 9mm, a 45, or a 357 Magnum. But being as I was going to this hospital, going in, all I had on me was a small 22. Well, I said that would be like throwing spitballs at a horse. That'd be a waste of time and do nothing but get you killed. Well, I'm standing there staring at this, eye to eye contact. Our eyes are locked together. And I knew the worst thing to do would be run, because that would cause it to attack. Well, our eyes are at the same height. We were just staring at each other. As I looked into its eyes were an orangish yellow. I was so close to it that I could see the veins in its eyes. Now that sounds hard to believe, but I was. I've got a pretty good sized head myself, but its eyes were between 2.5 inches further apart than mine are.
That's big.
Now that's a big head,
Yes, it is.
because I got pretty good size on myself. But like I said, the dogs took off in the yard. I started walking backwards. Walked about halfway, which would be maybe 40 feet. I walked backwards because I knew there was nothing in the way, and I walked backwards and kept eye contact with it the whole time. Well, when I got halfway, I turned around and walked slow. I didn't run. And I've had people ask me if I got scared. I said, what happened so quick I didn't have time to. Because I wouldn't want to have to fight the thing, but he before I'd let him have my dog, you know, he'd had to hurt me. Because I couldn't fight it, I know that, don't take me wrong. But he wasn't going to hurt my dog if I could keep it from happening. Well, I went in the house, and what really scared me was my niece's husband hunts. But he had guns in there, he didn't have no ammo. That's when I got scared. Because I figured this thing could come through the door, and there I'm standing with a 22 in my pocket and maybe a brick of ammo, which, you know, fighting that with a 22, it'd be like mosquito bites to it. Well, the next day, we got up and I went out there where he was at and looked at the situation. I had my niece to stand where I was standing, and I walked down where it was standing, moved some leaves around, and I found a footprint. And it was like a human footprint, because the water drains down through there, and it was still soft enough that it left an impression on it. And I took her and had her to stand where I was at, and I went over where I was standing and I measured it, and I figured it was between 8.5 and 9.5 feet tall. I'll say between 9 and 9.5 feet tall would be my guess, would be close. Because like I said, I stood where I was standing, had her to stand straight. Our eyeballs were straight at the same height. And had her stand there, then I measured it to the ground there, and it was roughly 9.5 feet tall. And that's basically it. Now, I never seen it as far as body outline. I can't tell you what it was, but I can tell you what it wasn't. But I can tell you that the height, the size of it, where it was standing, and that's it. If it wasn't a Bigfoot, I don't know what else it could be, but in my opinion, that's what I believe it was.
Okay, Larry, let me ask you this. Did you happen to measure the footprint that you found? Was it a full footprint, Was it a partial?
It was just basically you could see the outline of the very front half of it.
Okay.
You know.
Okay. Now, can you estimate how wide that footprint was when you saw it?
I would say it was around 5.5, 6 inches wide.
Okay.
Up at the large toe at the widest area,
Mm-hmm.
I'd say it was roughly 5 to 6 inches wide.
Okay, that matches up completely with what that I found, and people that other investigators that I've talked to and people that have seen them, when they find a footprint, they're 5 to 6 inches wide when they're that tall.
There's different lengths.
Yeah,
Different lengths.
their length of the foot is usually, if you'd have looked harder or looked, if you'd have known what you was looking for at the time, you probably would have found the heel about from the front part of that foot. You probably would have found it about another 8 or 9
Well, I
inches
did
behind
look
it.
around. I did look
You
around.
did look around.
Yeah. And this ground was so hard that where this footprint was at, like I said, there's 2 acre lots. She had 2 acres. They had 2 acres, and there's 2 acres beside her. Then in between it, there was roughly 2 acres because there was an area there that they couldn't sell because when you come off the road, there's a curve in the road there.
Right.
There's a drainage, and they didn't sell this lot because there's a drainage ditch. Natural made drainage ditch. It comes down through there.
Uh-huh.
And this dirt was softer than the rest of it because it was right in the area where the
Where it
water
was
drained
damp.
off.
Okay.
And I searched around the area, but now, like I told you yesterday when I told you the story, that a few days later,
Uh-huh.
my niece has some grandkids, and they come down and stay all night with her. And she jumped on me and accused me of telling them. Said, Uncle Larry said, why did you tell my grandkids that story? They're scared to death now. I said, I didn't tell them that story. You must have. Anyway, her grandkids were out playing, and apparently they seen this, whatever it was. They seen it. They said it looked kind of like a bear. Is what they described it as.
Well, kids don't know
Right.
what these things are.
Right.
They'll, they see something on TV, that's a bear.
Well, they said it looked like a bear. Grandma, could it been a Bigfoot? Is what they asked her. So
Yeah.
there's so much of it on TV now that kids pick up more than we think they do, basically.
Right. Well, 90% of what you see on television today about Bigfoot is Hollywood.
I agree with you. I agree with you.
I have a couple of questions for you now. When you were when you walked outside, did you have any feelings or any like something was different or something was wrong or odd?
You talking about when I first walked out that evening?
When you walked out that
No,
evening to
I just
let the
went
dogs out.
I just went outside to take the dogs out, and wherever this was, it was maybe at least 100 or 200 yards from there. I'd say it was actually on the other side of the road up there, which is about, her house from the road, I'll say is probably 200 yards.
Uh-huh.
So there's so many trees there, and there's, it's a big lot. It's a heavy wooded area, and it changed its direction because of the dogs barking out. So it wasn't sitting there watching me.
Mm-hmm.
And when it stepped off the road, it stepped into there's grass there. It's over 4 to 5 foot tall, and a path where these animals walk through there, and the Bigfoots walk through there. But I asked her, I said, do you talk to a lot of people around here? And I said, check and see if anybody's had dogs and animals missing. And it turns out that people have had a lot of dogs, cats, and different type of animals missing around there. I believe that it's catching dogs and killing them for a meal, food source. Like what I believe's happened is this is close to Fort Knox area, and there's a large game resort up there where you can hunt and stuff.
Uh-huh.
And I believe, now this is just what I put together thinking about it, I believe that it goes out hunting, and on its way back, if it hasn't got nothing for its family, then it'll pick up a dog or something like that on the way back. And I believe that's basically what he was doing. Because this is around, like I said, 12 to 1 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
And that's a pretty easy source, a dog or something like that's a pretty easy source of food for a Bigfoot to, pick up. But I believe that's what it was, because let's face it, turkeys aren't the smartest animals in the world.
Right.
And I would have never believed that all these turkeys are there, but there's 2 large trees there. And I'll say there's 20 to 30 turkeys in this tree every day roosting. Then there's 3 or 4 more trees around there, but I've actually sat out there and counted over 40 turkeys strolling through her yard from this tree that they're roosting.
So it's food source there.
Yeah, a large food source. Let's face it,
Migrating through.
a turkey is so dumb, you could kill one of them and the other ones would stand there and you could walk up and get the other one too. I mean, they're pretty dumb animals, So, I mean, that's a pretty easy source of food for a Bigfoot, because I believe they hunt with clubs, like a rock, or take a stick, and you take a stick and hit a turkey, you're going to break its neck. It's so easy, it's pitiful. I mean, that's just you take that many turkeys there, that's a pretty good food source, 30 or 40 turkeys.
Let me ask you this. Now, we've discussed how it's changed your life and everything. Can you tell us, since you saw this, what has really changed about you? I mean, in the ways of how you feel about things and how you do your everyday life.
Well, then, it hasn't changed me a lot, because I was always a type of person like to be aware of what's going on around me. But the main thing I've noticed is that when I walk outside, especially at night, I always wonder what's in the shadows. Is there something in the shadows staring back at me? And I catch myself watching for the eyes, because the eyes light up. I mean, these eyes, like I don't know if I said this, but I was so close that the eyes were an orangish yellow, and I could see the veins in the eyes. I was that close, and I mean, it's hard to be that close, because I mean, this thing had veins in its eyes about the size of a number 2 lead pencil. The veins were that big. So I was so close I could see it, and I catch myself when I walk out at night, like I'll take my dog out to use the bathroom or something like that at night before I go to bed. I catch myself that I'm careful when I walk outside the door, and I watch and look. And I definitely won't go outside or anywhere without a good flashlight. But basically, I'm a little more paranoid, I'll say.
Right.
Because what's in the shadows looking at you? That's the main thing I get. But I've had people ask me, didn't you get scared? I said, well, at the time I didn't have time to. I actually got more scared after I found out her husband had guns in there and didn't have no ammo for them.
Right.
Yeah.
It was
Now-
duelist.
Yeah. You got it.
Now, let me ask you this question. You had a pretty close encounter with a Bigfoot. Let me ask you this question, and this question has been asked to me bunches of times by the viewers and by the subscribers of our channel. Well, why didn't you take pictures?
Didn't have a camera.
Okay. If you'd have had a camera, do you think you would have thought to pull it out of your pocket to take pictures of this thing? It's a tough question.
When stuff happens so fast, and
Yeah.
first time you seen one,
Well, to me, the most important thing was to make sure it didn't get my dog or get me. That was the
Right.
main thing I was looking at.
and it being the first one you ever seen, you was never looking for one, was you?
No, but the thing is, when this happens, it happens so quick. If I hadn't had my dog with me, if I'd been out there by myself, that would have changed everything. Because this dog is like a child to me. It's like one of my kids. I know I couldn't fight it, but I would have went down trying to before I'd let him get my dog.
Right. So, basically what you're saying is even though you weren't looking for this, you didn't know they were out there, you never paid any attention to it before. You may have watched a few videos or a few movies on TV or something of about a Bigfoot, and most of that was Hollywood dramatized stuff. But you weren't actively looking for this thing. It just happened to come walking over and looking at your dogs like it was dinner. And if you'd have had a camera on you, you probably wouldn't have thought of to take a picture now, would you?
I don't know. I really don't know. I've thought about that. If I was in a situation and had a good camera, people don't realize when you're in a situation like this, if you're standing there and you got a camera in your pocket, but see, I didn't even have my cell phone with me,
Right.
which is a camera.
Right.
And you got to have a camera that's set up for night
Right.
shots. So I mean, that's a lot of I could have done it if,
Right.
which I didn't have a camera on me, and it wouldn't have been set up for night vision or whatever. At the time, it's like one of your kids. If you're staying out there and a Bigfoot came up behind one of your kids, more than likely taking a picture of it standing on the other side of your kid would be the last thing you'd be thinking about.
Right. You'd be ready to defend
The way
your
I
child.
look at that, and that's kind of the situation to me. Looking at my dog for lunch is like saying it's looking at one of my kids for lunch.
Right.
And being taken surprised
Oh,
on
yeah.
top of it.
Well,
off
I
guard.
tell you, people say, well, did you believe in Bigfoot before? I've always been an open-minded person. And think it's like you look out into space and say, is there aliens out there? Well, you'd have to be kind of foolish to think that we're the only intelligent life form there is, if you want to call us intelligent. So, I mean, it's definitely opened my eyes up that I know they're out there now.
Okay.
I know they're out there.
And it'd be different too if you'd see something like that coming
Oh, yeah.
from afar off and it didn't see you and you had a few 20, 30 seconds to think to
Well,
do something.
I-
But when it catches you off guard like that, you're totally unprepared, ain't you?
I've been in a business 3 times when it's been armed robbed. And the police will come up and they'll ask you for to identify the people, give me a description of them. Every time it happens, if it happens to you more, you get more relaxed with it and you get knowing
Right.
what to do more.
Right.
The second time, it's like if you have an encounter the first time, the second time you'll be more prepared and have an instinct to come here taking a picture than you will the first time. That's the way I look at it.
Mm-hmm.
With my past experiences, that's what I think anyway. And if people don't believe they're out there, they're crazy because they are out there. But what gets me is these people go out looking for them, and they think they're friendly. Well, I'm sure there's ones that are more friendly than other ones, but anybody that thinks these things aren't dangerous is very foolish. Because, well, it's like a big dog playing with a little dog. A little dog is so small, a big dog can hurt it by accident. Well, these things are so big, they can hurt you any way they want to, but anybody that thinks these aren't dangerous, well, they better not be out there. And what gets me is these women that go out looking for them. I've seen people in groups, women in groups of 6 and 7 that go out looking for them. And if they realize what they could be getting themselves in for, they wouldn't be out there like that. Because a woman that goes out looking for these things by herself or with another woman, she better make sure she thinks about what she's doing. Me and you talked about this
Right.
earlier. And they just don't realize the animal instinct, like you used the description of a deer being in a rut. Well, these things walk around in rut all the time. And a woman don't realize how she's putting her life in danger if she's out looking for a Bigfoot. Because the word rape's not in their vocabulary. They're going to take what they want. and they're big enough they can do it.
Right.
Hey Larry, what time of the year was this that it happened?
Don't really remember. This has been about 15 years ago. I believe, don't hold me to it, I believe it was in spring.
Okay.
I'm real bad at not keeping track of stuff like that, especially as I've gotten older.
Well, that's okay.
I am real close to 70. I'm not the youngest guy in the world, and seems like time means less as you get older, But I believe it was in spring. Is it in spring or early summer? Right in that area, and I could be wrong, but that's what I believe it was because it was warm and there was leaves on the trees. The leaves weren't turning yet, and stuff like that. So I'd say it was early spring or early summer. But like I said, there were leaves on the trees.
Thanks.
Okay, Larry, I'm going to tell you this. I think you saw Bigfoot that night. There's not any animal out there in the woods that I know that can be 9.5, 9 foot tall or more, or a little bit shorter.
Yeah, there's not 5,000 800-pound black bears running around. Because as many people been seen, had to be 300 pounds above the state record to be that big.
A lot of people think you're lying and you're doing it to get attention and stuff like that. I usually tell my story. I don't say it was if somebody wants to hear it, I usually tell them the story, and I don't say what it was. I say, you tell me what it was.
Right.
And because I didn't see its face, it was in the shadows enough and it was dark enough. I seen the eyes.
The eyes got your attention, didn't it? That's you
you
probably
better
focused
believe.
on
Well, like
that.
I said, I've got a pretty good sized head. Its eyes were 2.5 to 3 inches further apart than mine are. That's a big head.
Well, that would make the eyes probably about from one edge of the eye to the other, guesstimating yours, about 6 to 7 inches across. And that's typical Bigfoot.
That's a big head.
That's typical dimensional.
It ain't a
Bigfoot.
watermelon looking back at you.
No, it's not.
But it's bigger than watermelon.
Yeah.
It was big.
And according to what I've seen and what my partner here has seen, we've seen them, and we've seen them, 20, 30, 40 feet, something like that. I've seen two in my lifetime. The first one was at 20 feet, less than 20 feet, and it was broad daylight, 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
That's the distance I was from.
And then I saw my second one at 4 o'clock in the morning at my own home. So I know what you went through, having to deal with, people saying, that you're nuts or you're crazy. You're not. They're out there.
I don't care what anybody thinks. I know what I seen. I know what happened, and don't have no reason to lie. And nobody believes it until they have an experience. Then they don't doubt you then. Let's say have it happen to them. And what I don't understand is why there's not more people seeing them than there is, but I believe there's a lot more people seeing them than we would really believe.
Well, most of the time when you find somebody that's, they contact the BFRO or any, some of these other big organizations that do the Bigfoot thing, they send somebody out that may or may not have seen a Bigfoot in their entire life. They go out and they just, well, I don't think this area would hold a Bigfoot, or I don't think the Bigfoot would come through here.
To try to discredit the witness, more or less.
And they take that report and they file 13 it, is exactly what they do with it. Now, there's a lot of people out there that don't report them because people look at them strangely.
They're like being made fun of, ridiculed.
Right.
Well, I don't understand BFRO. I've watched the show a few times on TV, and in my opinion, they're not going out looking for them anyway. They're making a TV show. There's 2 or 3 of them on there that I believe have get out and look for them. But if you go out there with a big camera of night vision, that Bigfoot can see that night vision before they turn. As soon as they turn the camera on, and the way they're going out there looking at it, they're not going to sneak up on one. They make too much noise, so I don't understand how they get there looking for Bigfoot. All they're going out and doing is making a lot of noise.
The night vision cameras they use, that would be like us in the middle of the night, in the fall, no
Right.
leaves on in the woods.
That's right.
At midnight, and somebody go down the hall and turn on a flashlight. You can see it plain as day.
Well, you take as many game trail cameras have been set up, and there has been very few cameras. It don't take long to figure out that Bigfoot can see that infrared
That's
camera
right,
off
that's
in the
right.
distance.
That's right.
If not, there'd be a lot more pictures of the rest.
There's probably 100,000 game cameras sold.
Probably just in the state of Kentucky.
And if they couldn't see them, there would be hundreds of thousands of pictures
Yes,
already.
that's what I say. I believe the same thing.
Does anyone have any more
Not all.
questions for?
Put it this way, Bigfoot's not a dumb animal.
No,
Right.
and it's not all animal.
No, it's just. I told you what I believe it is, and I don't believe it's as much animal as people think it is. But I told you what I believe it is,
Right.
and I believe I'm dead on it.
It's got animal in it. It's got human in it, but it's also got a lot of other things in it too.
Well, there's a woman on YouTube that shows a picture of a bunch of them, and they're closer to the orangutan and a small baboon or ape than they are a human being. And I believe that's what they started out as, but I believe they've carried women off and raped and molested women enough that they started a different line of them.
Sure.
And they've got so much human in them now, it's scary. But I believe they've interbred with humans so much that they've lost a lot of the gorilla. And I think that's why they're so human-like, which I believe they were close anyway.
There's a picture of my foot and the footprint on my property.
But see, I got a nephew that's got a foot just about that size. I got a
but
nephew who wears a.
That's 17 and a half inches.
No,
long,
I
what
got
this
a
is.
nephew that's got a foot that big.
Pretty big boy.
No, he's tall, slim. He wears a 22 shoe,
Wow.
but it's about half as wide as that is. He's got a 22 shoe, and it don't look like it's very wide